Good evening to you fuckers. Marcellus Wallace sent me down here to do a surprise episode of the podcast. I was just in town because I just got done taking care of your boy Henson. So sit exactly where you are and don't make any sudden movements. Let's get this episode started.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yo, fuckers. That's right, I'm here today on this Halloween morning with a surprise, spooky episode of the podcast for you guys. I was supposed to have my bye week this week, but in light of events that happened in the league, and seeing that it's Halloween Day this Thursday of this year, I figured it'd be fun to make a little episode. And I'll just take my bye week next week. I'll probably be tired anyway after we play the game of flag football. So, that being said, let's get right into things. First off, we got our turkey 10-leggers that are coming up starting in the first week of November. And so I wanted to go over how I plan for things to work. So, everybody's going to submit their pick to the group chat by Wednesday night. I'll make sure everybody gets their picks in, but that way you guys can all see what other picks have been made so that we're not making any, or we can't make a duplicate, but so we can avoid, picking the same team and having to repick. I'll text any stragglers who don't have their pick in by Wednesday night, and if worse comes to worse, we'll just pick a different favorite or whatever in their place. Everybody gets one money line pick. It's first come, first serve, so as soon as you declare your pick in the group chat, that's how your pick will be solidified. And the other thing that we mentioned was that the lowest scoring team is going to submit the $5 deposit. And so we'll need that from the lowest scoring team by kickoff on Thursday. All right, and I did mention it a little bit before, but flag football is coming up. And so I actually did a little research on the rules of, this is NFL flag official rules. And I figure it's worth going over. We can choose which ones to follow or how we want to play when we all get there and we're all in person deciding. So the way they play, the field is 50 yards. Every drive starts on the 5-yard line. You have 3 downs to get to midfield and then 3 more to make a touchdown. So if you don't get it in the 3 downs, you can turn over the ball and they start on their own 5-yard line. Or you have the option to go for it on 4th, but if you don't make it, the ball turns over at the spot of the ball. So they'll be in your territory. Another rule, the QB cannot advance the ball beyond the line of scrimmage unless he's handed off and then handed off again back to him. There's only direct handoffs, no laterals, no pitches, no screens, no blocking. A point after is a play from the 5-yard line where you can't do any running plays. That's for 1 point after. Or you could do a 2-point conversion from the 10-yard line, and that's any plays allowed, meaning run plays are allowed, obviously, no screens and all that still. There's no fumbles, so it's considered a down if the offense stays in possession of the ball. So wherever the person dropped the ball, that's where they continue the offensive drive. And this one is the one we can, I figure we'll debate the most, but I see what they're trying to do. I know we're like in our mid-30s already. We have to go to work for a living, so we wouldn't really want to be diving after any fumbles and taking a knee to the jaw. But like I said, so I'll print all these out before when we get to the park on Monday night at 6, and then we can kind of decipher what we want to do and how we want to play. Next up, it's the section we all love but hate to be in. It's the... 'Cause you had a bad day, you take it one down, you sing a sad song just to turn it around. And I think this is the most epic Tuesday blues of the season. I took down Henny, and it wasn't just some technical Tuesday blues where it's like, oh, he was beating me by 1 point and I had a starter ready to go. It was a legit 17-point gap that I had to cover and did cover after George Kittle's monster performance on Sunday night. I was watching that game and I was like, man, fuck this. There's no way. There's no way. This is impossible. But alas, here we are. And I apologize, Henny, but you're obviously still the top dog where it is right now. So I was just worried that you were going to stomp me and end my momentum on trying to come back for the season. But at least 2 games in, doing good. Next week, I play Chef, or this week, I should say. So we'll see how that matchup goes. Now, we did also have a bunch of trades this season, or this week. So I wanted to go ahead and discuss.
Here, I'll trade you.
But why would you trade? That one's all chewed up.
The first one I wanted to go over is my trade with Jalen Hurts. I traded Zach Moss for Rome Odunze. And my thinking here was it's a pretty even trade. He needed a running back, and I'm taking my shot on a rookie wide receiver. Hopefully, they usually gain momentum in the second half of the season. I believe in the Bears' upcoming schedule. And so, yeah, I took my shot. Let me know what you guys think. Next up, Donnie, I should say, traded Dalton Kincaid and Bucky Irving to Edwin for both of the New York Giants running backs, that being Devin Singletary and Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone Tracy is definitely on the up-and-coming list, and he's been on top waivers of all the research that I've been looking at, and so he's definitely somebody that has a high ceiling. For a team manager like Donnie, who's trying to aim for the fences, so to say, this point in the season, I think it's a pretty good trade, although I wouldn't want to have both New York Giants running backs on my team, on my roster, because you're never going to start them both. That's my gripe with this trade, is that Dalton Kincaid is a onesie position, Bucky Irving is a running back. You're filling 2 starting positions with that combo, as opposed to getting the other 2 guys. But I know Donnie will be more than capable of managing his team, and so let me know what you guys think of that trade. Now, the biggest trade, where everybody already let me know what they think, was the collusion trade. Raul trading DeAndre Hopkins and JP Mason to Vaughn for Russell Wilson. Now, I'm not going to lie, at first, when I looked at it, the app didn't refresh, and so it looked like Vaughn traded for a third quarterback, but it ended up that it was actually the opposite way, and so I don't see any collusion in this at all. Donnie was like, no, it's because they're making the shitty team viable, and I was like, that's not what collusion is. Collusion would be taking the shitty team's good player and putting it on the good team. So anyway, I think that's a pretty even trade. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is a bet that's supposed to pay off, now having been traded to the Chiefs. And Bucky Irving is been the lead running back in the Bucks backfield. And now that they don't have their star wide receivers, at least for the time, Evans will come back. Godwin, of course, will not. But they're relying more on the running game, so it's going to get a lot of production out of them. For this next section, I got to shout it out to the Dub Club. Chef, Janel Hurts, me, Greg, and Raul. And I'm going to take that and transition right into the power rankings. So this week, the top 3 has not changed. It's still Henny, myself, and followed by Raul. In 4th place, though, Janel Hurts was able to skip 1 spot ahead while Eric fell down a spot. Chef is in the 6th position, going ahead 3 spots within that last week. After him is Vaughn, who fell down a spot. Donnie in the same position. Edwin, who fell down 2 spots. And Greg still in the same position. Now, if you look at the scores or the points, Edwin, Donnie, Vaughn, and Chef are all within 5 points of each other. 63, 64, 65, 68. Well, and actually, Eric is tied with Chef with 68 points, but I guess he's winning some tiebreaker. Yeah, that whole middle section is absolutely packed. I'm sure that it's going to keep changing every week. And so tune back in next week to see after this week of action. All right, let's move on forward into this week's fantasy matchup recap. First off, we had Eric being defeated by Janel Hurts in a final score of 113 to 106 in a close matchup. The main contributors on Janel Hurts' side was Jared Goff with 83 and 3 pass touchdowns, as well as 1 rushing touchdown. for a final score of 22.35. I feel like that's low. That victory was crazy, 52-14 over the Tennessee Titans. Jahmyr Gibbs as well in that same matchup had 127 rush yards and a rushing touchdown. Jamar Chase also hauled in a touchdown and David Njoku a touchdown, which helped his team come out and put his name into the Dub Club. On the other side, Travis Kelce did his best with 90-1 for a total score of 20. Derrick Henry had 73-1 with 4 receiving yards for a final score of 14.2. But everyone else, Lions defense, got to shout it out to them though. 1 sack, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles, 1 return for a touchdown, 19 points altogether, which made it a close matchup, but unfortunately not enough to defeat Jalen Hurts. In our next matchup, Vaughn was clapped by 24 points by Chef himself. In this matchup, on Vaughn's side, the only real contributor was Joe Mixon, who had 102 rush yards with a rushing touchdown and 32 receiving yards. Everyone else had subpar performances, Evan Ingram being the only one who hauled in a touchdown. Caleb Williams, of course, with the fumble that cost him down, that lowered his score down to 7.65. On the other side, Lamar Jackson with 289-2 with 46 rush yards. He's a beast. Tyreek Hill, 72 receiving yards, but enough for 10 points. Kyle Pitts with 91-2. Hell of a performance from the tight end. And enough to put Chef into the Dub Club this week. Next up, the matchup of the week. Me versus Henson. Now, when this matchup started off, it was all Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts, of course, 236-1 with 37 rush yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Gotta love the tush push. Kyron Williams as well with 97-1. On the other side, Joe Burrow had a meager performance of 234-1 with an interception that lowered his score to 17.2. Barkley going off with 108 rush yards, 13.6 points. And DeAndre Swift for the Bears. Actually, with that one super long touchdown and very good performance, 129-1. Still, the final score being 115-125, I give Henson his first loss of the season. The undefeated Goliath God has now bled, so we know that he's killable. In our next matchup this week, we had another very close one. This was almost a Tuesday Blues, but I guess you could call it a Monday Blues. It was all as a result of the Sunday night game where CeeDee Lamb absolutely went off. Final score, Greg edged out Edwin with the final of 118-112. As I mentioned, CeeDee Lamb with 146-2 on the Sunday night football game against San Francisco. CJ Stroud with 285 and 1 pass touchdown, but also a fumble, so a meager score of 14.2. Devontae Smith in that same game with the Eagles going off with 85-1. On the other side, Jordan Love with a very disappointing performance. 196, but no touchdowns, and actually an interception, so final score of 7.7. Bijan Robinson with 63-1 with 43 receiving yards was his best performing player, 20.1 points. Trey McBride had a good performance, 124 receiving, and Zay Flowers as well with 115. Altogether, really close matchup. Unfortunate loss, making Edwin down to 5-3, but boosting Greg up to 3-5. So we'll see how both of these gentlemen do in the rest of their seasons. And in the final matchup, another really close one. This one almost was a Tuesday Blues again. The Dingleberry Stasher defeated Don's Plum Bum with 137-127. Of course, I referenced the Tuesday Blues because the defense on the Steelers was the deciding factor. Of course, playing against my Giants in a horrible, horrible game from my Giants. Anyway, 20 points from the defense was enough to put him over the top of Donnie's score. Despite Josh Allen going for 283-2, Jonathan Taylor with 105-1, Cade Otton with 81-2, and Dalton Kincaid with 31, but hauled in a receiving touchdown. Double tight end strategy from Donnie, but not good enough to defeat that 20-point Steelers D. 15 points from Justin Jefferson off of 115 receiving yards. 97-1 with 50 receiving yards and a touchdown for Devon Achane. That man is a beast. Josh Jacobs went for 127-2 for 27. And Baker Mayfield with 330, 3 passing touchdowns. Despite the 2 interceptions, still coming up with 31.6 points. And one last thing before I send you fuckers off into the wild, into this spooky Halloween middle of the week weekday that probably nobody's going to do anything unless you take your kids out. We are going to preview the Thursday Night Football matchup with the Texans going at the Jets. The over-under is 42 currently, opened up at 45. As I'm assuming news broke of the ACL injury to Stephon Diggs, and then it broke again when Donnie gave it to us the next day. I'm sure had something to do with the odds here going lower, and the Jets are favored by 1.5. They opened at 3, which it must mean a bunch of people are hammering the Jets. Houston does have a lot of injuries at wide receiver. They don't have, like I said, Stephon Diggs, but Nico Collins is also out. So Tank Dell is their primary active wide receiver. We'll see if he can get it done. And I have to take a guess on this game. Honestly, I don't even remember my score on these, but I know what I'm doing. I'm taking Houston all day to cover that 1.5 spread because fuck the Jets. I'll bet a Royale with cheese that they don't pull this out over the Texans. All right? And that's it. That's my surprise Sode for you today on Halloween Day. I hope you guys all enjoy the rest of your day. Maybe enjoy the football game tonight. I'll see all you guys on the gridiron on Monday evening. You guys won't see me here on Thursday next week, but I'll be back 2 Thursdays from now after my mid-season bye week, fresh and ready to go, and haul in the rest of this season on the Fantasy Freestyle Podcast.
Wanna hear you go.